Welcome to another edition of Who's Better Baseball, the podcast where we answer a simple question on each show. Who's better at baseball? I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein, managing editor at justbaseball.com. I have Elijah Evans with me today. We're going to run through the home run derby field and who we think might win this season. This is a really fun field. When it comes to a guy like Mookie Betts performing for the first time, you have all of the kind of regulars of the last couple of years, Pete Alonso, Vlad Guerrero Jr., J-Rod in Seattle. I think we're in for an incredible derby, and it feels like the derby is almost kind of taking place. It's almost like where no one cares about the NBA All-Star game, and it's more about the dunk contest or the three-point contest. It feels like we're there with the home run derby.
Yeah, I'm feeling that way too, man. I mean, this field is awesome. There's years in the past where it's been like, there's a few guys where you're like, that guy's not winning. I could see every one of these 8 guys winning. I mean, truly, like, I know that's like, it's a derby and it's a fun event. It doesn't matter, whatever. But like, all 8 of these dudes are really, really good hitters. And it's not just guys that are, that have pop. These are all like great baseball players. Like it's not just, I mean, there used to be a lot of times where you're going to see these guys who are, strikeout guys who strike out a ton, but they've got a bunch of power. And in the derby, they can just show off their power, whatever. Like these are all amazing players. I mean, I think everybody on this roster, I think, or maybe not Pete. Is Pete not an all-star? I think
No,
everybody else. Pete is an all-star. Yeah. So
yeah.
every single one of these guys is an all-star. I mean, there's been plenty of years where there's been non-all-stars in the derby because other people don't want to do it. I mean, every single one of these guys is an all-star. They're all great players. I mean, you got multiple starting guys, and you've got all these. Most of them have in the 20+ homer range, other than a few guys, and it's just a great field and a great event. And it's the home run derby is so much fun, and these guys love doing it. They have a blast, and it's gonna be a good event for us to watch.
It's kind of crazy how there was once maybe a stigma on, you do the derby and it might ruin your swing.
Right.
I feel like baseball's gotten to such a point with launch anyway that
Yeah.
there's some guys where they look at this event, and we've heard, guys like Julio Rodriguez or even Pete Alonso in particular talk about it, where this is an event that can get them going, where
Yeah.
they take, launching for an hour or whatever they do at the derby, and that swing, and all of a sudden it translates in the second half, and they go on a bit of a home run tear. So I
Yeah.
think it's getting to the point where you're getting the best talent possible. Shohei Ohtani, if he doesn't have a blister, like maybe we would have seen Ohtani in the derby. I don't know.
We could have.
But I love this field. Now I want to start with the 1-8 matchup, because the 1 seed in this derby is your guy. Yes. Luis Robert going up against Adley Rutschman.
Yeah.
Kind of a fun matchup of first timers here.
Yeah, definitely fun. Both these guys haven't done the derby. They're both young hitters. Adley's only in his second year, and this is Luis Roberts, breakout year for sure. Obviously, he's always had talent, but this is the year. I mean, you can read about it if anybody wants on Just Baseball a few weeks ago. From me, it's he's an inconsistent type of player, but he's really putting it all together right now. And I should write another article on him, frankly, because the last month has been even the best compared to the first two. But he's just an electrifying player. The way he hits a few nights ago against the Blue Jays, the White Sox still lost because that's what they usually do. But he hit a go-ahead homer and was just pimped it. It looked awesome. He was pumped. The crowd's the most excited I've seen White Sox fans in a long time. For a big, huge moment. Like he came up to the plate and you almost knew he was about to go deep. There was 2 guys on base. They were down 2 runs, a 3-run bomb to go ahead, and he crammed it 450 feet. His homer is like, we were talking with Jack McMullen of Just Baseball. I was talking to him a little bit about longest homer, and I think Luis Roberts hitting the longest homer. I know there's a lot of guys in this field that can hit bombs. Roberts hit a 480-foot bomb in the major leagues already. He did that a few years ago, and he's only been better this year. I would not be surprised to see him hit 490 in this event. I think he's got unbelievable pop, especially when he's just sitting on pitches that he knows are coming. So I'm excited for that. And then Rutschman, Adley's not necessarily a power bat as much as some of these other guys. He's more of a well-rounded, he's got a good approach, but he's got pop, man. If he can let it loose and really just get going, he can, swing it, and the field should work to his advantage in Seattle. I think there's definitely some intrigue there, and it's fun for 2 young guys that are both, really hitting their stride right now.
There's a lot of crazy athletes, obviously, in baseball, particularly in this tournament that we're going to watch unfold. I think Rutschman has a chance to be like, there's always one guy in the field that doesn't quite perform. And I could see Rutschman first time doing it, big stage, maybe struggling a little bit, but you never know. You never know. Sometimes that's the guy that we think isn't going to come up big, and all of a sudden it's like Jock Peterson, where you're like, oh, wow, maybe he was built for the derby. So we'll see how Rutschman's swing translates. If you had to pick a winner, you're going with your guy, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking Luis in this one for sure. I think there's some other rounds where I might not be as confident taking him. In this one, the way he's swinging right now, he's the hottest power bat in baseball right now. I'm not betting against that.
Yeah, he's got a favorable side of the bracket because
Yeah,
the other matchup on his
other
side
side
of the
is
bracket
brutal.
is yeah, it is. So you got Adolis Garcia and Randy Arozarena, which is kind of fun to see two guys who are on teams that are great that aren't getting covered get to share a moment for however long that matchup lasts, 30
For
minutes
sure.
on our screen. We're gonna see a Ray and a Ranger out there, with great teams and
Yeah.
players that have been really a big part of what they've done this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these two guys have been huge. I mean, we've started to see more coverage, and they frankly deserve more than they're getting, like you mentioned. But these two have been, two of the key cogs on the two best offenses in the American League, the two best teams in the American League. So it's just fun to see guys that are, that are playing great. They're both having the best season of their career right now, and they're on teams that are winning, and they're making a huge impact on those teams winning. So that's always fun to watch in this derby. And I think the two of them also just have a ton of pop. I mean, Garcia is a guy who's got, obviously he leads the Rangers in homers right now, but he's got tons of natural power. And then, Randy's a guy who we know Randy loves the big moment. He loves the attention. That's all he's about, big game Randy. So he's a guy who I could easily see Randy doing, some of what J-Rod did last year, where you just see him, go on an absolute tear in 1 or 2 rounds and just look like he's completely unstoppable. I think this is a great matchup. I could honestly see this one going either way.
I think this is one of those matchups where one of them is going to get really hot, and that
Yeah,
that minute where they're
exactly.
going on a tear is going to define it. I got Randy in this one. Who do you have?
I'm with you. I think I got Randy. I just love the energy there. I think he's just that guy, right? I think that's all you can really say about Randy. He's got that energy. I think it'll be close though. I think they're both going to have a really good round, and it's going to be one of those rounds where you look and you're like, either of them would have beaten 4 other guys in the first round if they weren't facing each other. That's
Wow,
my hope.
that
Yeah,
that could be some fireworks for sure.
yeah.
Let's stay on that side of the bracket. All right, let's just say it's Robert Arozarena. Since we picked the same one, are you sticking with your guys? Your guy going to be in the final of the home run derby?
This one's close. I'm really tight on this one because I love Randy and I'm partial to Luis. But Randy's a beast. I'm still going Luis. But I could see that one completely being a coin flip because as we were talking about, Randy's got that gene for sure. I would not. I don't hate picking him at all here, but I'm sticking with Luis. That's my guy. I believe in him. I've been watching him crush home runs all year, so I'm sticking with him in this one. But could go either way.
I'll take Randy for the fun of it, so we're not
Yeah.
just agreeing on everything. But I
Right.
do want to take this moment to bring in the betting sponsor for Just Baseball, BetMGM, and look at the odds here. Because if you are looking at the favorites, Pete Alonso, the odds-on favorite, not surprising, multi-time Derby champ, he's at
Yep.
plus 275. You got Robert and Guerrero at plus 400, Adolis and at plus 500, J-Rod at plus 550. You got Randy Arozarena at plus 900, Mookie Betts at plus 1,000, and Adley Rutschman at plus 2,000. To me, this is why I wanted to bring in the odds now. I
Yeah.
like Randy at plus 900.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that that's real tempting considering the side of the bracket he's on because you look at obviously Luis is a beast, but we both picked him over Adolis. I think that matchup's close, but given how much more he's got in juice compared to Adolis, I like that. And then if in a world where Adley, if somehow Luis were to struggle, I think either of Adolis and Randy easily beats Adley. And I think even against Luis, Randy's got a great chance. So just purely given that side of the bracket, that's a really good value play. I hadn't looked at that one yet, but if I'm a betting man, I would definitely be taking a look at that Randy line.
I like it a lot. And on the other
Yeah,
side of the bracket, just because the Derby, you just don't know who's going to be hot that night. I look at Mookie Betts plus
yeah,
1,000, his first time competing in the event, and
yeah.
I think that's juicy. The problem is his side of the bracket has Vladdy, J-Rod,
Yeah,
and Pete Alonso.
it's
So
ridiculous.
it's a gauntlet to make it out of it. And maybe because of that, maybe the best bet on that side of the bracket is Pete Alonso, is a guy that just knows this tournament better than anyone here.
Sure.
But I'll tell you what, I think
Yeah,
of all the guys that we're going to get to watch hit, I think, or even just the matchups, I think first round, because it has Mookie in it, I'm most excited about Mookie and Vladdy going head to head.
yeah, that's gonna be awesome. I think, yeah, I don't know if I'm betting on anybody on that side of the bracket just because of how I mean, all four of those guys could easily win it. So for me personally, I think I'm laying stuff on Luis and Randy and expecting one of those two to be in the championship. And then you have a decent chance of winning it from there, just because I could see all four of the other side easily getting hot and making a run. But like you said, we can get into the Mookie and Vladdy. I mean, that's fun. Vladdy, Vladdy's definitely a candidate of like could get his season really going. He's been good, but he hasn't been, when you look at Vladdy's numbers, he hasn't been Vladdy. He hasn't been what we've grown to expect from Vladdy and what we think he can be, especially because he's still young. I mean, he's a lot younger than I think many people realize. And I think he's a guy that could really get going this season. His power hasn't quite been there this year. So I could see, if he goes in head to head with Mookie and he has a huge outing and beats Mookie, and then even if he loses to a J-Rod or a Pete, whatever it is, something like him facing off against Mookie Betts, one of the best players on the planet, and beating Mookie Betts could be a huge little boost to Vladdy's season.
I think you have three of those guys on this side of the bracket that they could see some uptick in performance in the second half because of the Derby, or to some extent. And Vladdy is interesting because he holds two records for home run derbies. It's most home runs in a round. I think he hit 40.
Something like that.
Most home runs in a tournament. I think he hit 90. And that was just the year that Pete Alonso had favorable matchups. I can tell you from a Mets perspective, his cousin was pitching to him. I think this was 2019. The ball was all over the place from his cousin. You also might remember too that Vladdy was a rookie that year that hadn't done a lot, but it was one of those fields where like this year, Vladdy, a rookie of his caliber, it would almost be like Ellie's actually playing too well. I don't even know where the comp would be. Maybe like Francisco Alvarez making this tournament as far as a guy that's hit some home runs as a rookie.
Yep. It's a good comparison.
Vladdy got in because it was like, well, just watch him hit and then get mad at it. And he put on such a show that no one could complain that it was in the tournament. There is still that thought that at some point Vladdy's going to win one of these. And so I guess maybe when you look at the odds on that side of the bracket, I don't know. Do you like him at plus 400? Compare it to J-Rod at plus 550. I guess that's where I'm at with it. I think the odds just don't work to bet on Vladdy. But I
agree with you.
I think he's still like, if you just said who are one of the favorites to win it, Vladdy's got to be.
I mean, Vladdy's got that. He's got that type of pedigree and the type of swing where you can just see him just cranking some homers in the Derby, and he's done it. Obviously, as you said, he's done it before. 91 homers. I just checked in 2019. I mean, that's ridiculous. The second highest was last year. J-Rod had 81, and that was like I mean, he still lost, but that was an unbelievable performance, and he had 81, and that's Vladdy had 10 more than that, and that's even Pete's best year 2 years ago. Pete only had 74, and Vladdy had 91 in that 1 year. I mean, pretty unbelievable stuff actually. So I definitely could see him, just completely going off. But I'm not betting on him. Just like you said, I think the odds there, just given that side of the bracket, just like even if he beats, he's got the experience over Mookie, even though Mookie's obviously been in the league a lot longer in terms of Derby, he's got the experience there. But then you get to, if you sneak by a Mookie, then I mean, just the J-Rod Alonso matchup is ridiculous.
It is. You look at the J-Rod, he had a couple 30 home run rounds last year, I believe. Vladdy, again, I go back to that 40 home run round. What is it? 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes with the 30-second?
Something like that. Yeah.
So it's either 2.5 or 3 minutes total time to hit 40 home runs in a 3-minute span or whatever it is. It's crazy. Who's your pick in that match? One last note I had on Mookie Betts. There was a fun quote that kind of came across how Mookie Betts' wife kind of challenged him to get into the Derby. And compared it to LeBron not competing in the slam dunk contest. So I think that's kind of interesting that it's like, all right, here's Mookie, kind of the middle of his career. If there's a time to do it, this is it. Right. Because of that, and because I like his odds, I'm picking Mookie Betts as my dark horse in this tournament, and I got him beating Vladdy. Are you taking Vladdy over Mookie?
Yeah, I think I'll do the same thing you did in the last one and go against you here. I didn't have a lean going into this one, but I'm going to take Vladdy, I think, just based on the experience. I could see Mookie doing it. I mean, Mookie's that type of guy that could totally do it. I could also see Mookie falling into that category of, a guy who's a little bit later in his career, comes to the Derby for the first time, struggles a little bit, doesn't really show out a lot, and kind of just, says whatever, scraps it, and then, has a great all-star game or anything like that, because he's a great player and I don't think he's good, but I could see him struggling a bit. I see more likely that he struggles than Vladdy struggles. I can also see his ceiling being higher, but I'll go with Vladdy for this one.
It's going to be fun. And the winner gets the ability to play whoever wins J-Rod Alonso, which we saw that last year. That was a matchup. J-Rod knocked out Alonso before losing to Juan Soto in the finale. That's going to be awesome. Pete Alonso lives for the Derby. He's got an old travel coach coming out to pitch to him, which
Cool.
if I'm betting, I don't love that because I remember, again, watching Pete's cousin throw to him. And sometimes you get kind of a normal person like Dave Joust has been,
Sure.
on big league fields for a long time. He's not going to get as phased by throwing batting practice there. A travel coach, I do wonder about that. When Pete Alonso's odds are sitting plus 275, I hate that I'm going against the Met, but simply odds from an odds
Yeah.
perspective, it's hard for me to lay some of my money down on Alonso to win it this year, as much as I still think he's the best suited to win this tournament every year.
Yeah, no, I think you make a good point. I think it's hard to bet against him just because he's got that experience. He clearly loves this stuff. He's done it twice. He almost did it. He could have done it almost a third time. But yeah, the odds aren't great there. And J-Rod last year he was electrifying last year. I mean, I remember watching the Derby last year and I was like, man, like I knew J-Rod was good before the Derby, but I think the general public got to see him in the Derby and was like, wow, this guy is special. And that was a crazy moment last year that I remember. And I think we could see a similar performance. J-Rod of all these guys is probably having the worst season actually. Coming off of an incredible year last year, rookie of the year, one of the best rookie seasons ever. I think he's struggled a bit this year. He's come back down to earth. He's had some, a sophomore slump per se, and he could really use a little boost for his season and for the Mariners' sake. They're trying to win still, which is rough considering the status of the AL wildcard race. But the Mariners need him to really become that superstar. So I kind of lean J-Rod here. I'm not gonna lie. I know Pete's your guy, and I 100% would be rocking with my guy, and as I am with Luis. But J-Rod I'm leaning on the J-Rod train for this one.
Yeah, it's interesting that you kind of bring up some of the narratives that play into it. There was a little bit of conversation about J-Rod maybe not deserving to be an all-star this year. I think you can really healthfully make that case considering the season he's had, but it's the Mariners' year to host, and you want J-Rod at that event. I think before the season, if you thought who's going to be the face of the all-star game, it's going to be J-Rod. So it's good to have him in the Derby and in the game. Last year, he was hitting 275, 337 on base, 477 slug, with 16 home runs in 91 games played heading into the break, a 136 WRC plus. He missed a little bit of time with an injury at the end of September, but coming out his second half, he hit 303, 361 on base, 576 slug, 12 home runs in 41 games, and had 169 WRC plus. So he clearly got a lot better after the Derby. Pete Alonso in 2021 was hitting 249, 326, 477 at the break, 17 homers in 78 games. After the break and winning the Derby, he hit 275, 361, 560, 20 home runs in 74 games, a 147 WRC plus. So these are two guys that I feel like want to have as much of a stay as they can in this tournament to get themselves riding a momentum into the second half. And I
wish we didn't have to see this matchup. I wish you didn't have to see this matchup so early. It's brutal. Yeah. It's like, I know that's just how the bracket works out with total homers. But it is like, wow, this is a matchup that like, I would love them on the opposite sides of the bracket. So we could have the, fantasize of them in the championship. But at the same time, it's as you said, round one has got some really awesome matchups.
I think to pick against my guys, not something I want to do,
can't do it.
But from a betting perspective, I would tell someone if you're going to pick two guys from this side, to me, it's Mookie because the odds are so long. And I look at Vladdy and J-Rod as pretty comparable chances of winning this. And you can get J-Rod right now at plus 550 to put a plus 400. So I feel like J-Rod's the bet there. So I'm actually going to say J-Rod.
Oh, wow.
And let's just say that Mookie doesn't pull off the upset and it's J-Rod Vladdy. Who would you have in that matchup?
I'm rocking with J-Rod. The Seattle, he's at home. It's his fans, the fans in Seattle are going to be losing it for him if he beats Pete Alonso, especially. So if he's able to get past Alonso, I'll put it this way. I think the winner of Pete and J-Rod beats the winner of Mookie and Vlad, regardless of who it is. I think those two are they're just awesome. I can't bet against them after I've seen what they've done the last 2 years. So I'm saying whoever wins that matchup beats the Mookie Vlad matchup.
Well, that brings us to the finale, and then let's just pose it this way since we had different people getting there. Do you think either Robert or Rosarena can beat J-Rod if he makes it to that finale in front of that home crowd. Remember, Bryce
Yeah.
Harper won his home run derby in front of a national crowd.
Yeah.
So I feel like when you get to that point, momentum might just
Yeah.
be on J-Rod's side to take the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's really hard to bet against the guy who makes it to the championship, beats two incredible players along his way, hypothetically, and then faces off against two guys who haven't done it before. I could see, Randy's so clutch, and Luis Roberts by far has the most. I mean, not by far because Pete's right behind him, but he has the most homers, and in the past month has been by far the best hitter of this group. He's been probably the top 3 hitter in baseball in the last month. So I think based on just being hot as a player, Luis has a chance. And I think being clutch, Randy has a chance. But if it comes down to J-Rod in Seattle against those two, I'm probably betting on J-Rod.
And I think that's where we both land here. Again, if you want to bet on the home run derby, bet MGM, use the promo code JustBaseball to get some bonuses there. And you look at the field, I think you're sitting there at plus 550 for J-Rod. I think that's the best bet to win the home run derby.
Yeah, I
and
think that's
it's
good.
it's also probably the most fun you can have following it, right? Because you'll get
Right.
caught up in that story about the hometown player, the young star. And man, the Mariners need it. They need J-Rod to win it just
Need
so
some
that they
energy.
can maybe get some life into that ball club for a second half push. It's going to be tough for him. So a lot of fun storylines and threads to pull watching that home run derby on Monday. So make sure you all check that out. Check out all of the great content we've come your way at justbaseball.com and
On
subscribe
top of
wherever you
that,
get your podcasts.
if you're in the Seattle area, check out Just Baseball is going to be having an event with eBay. So there'll be the JB guys are going to be out hanging out, watching the draft, talking baseball, card trading, all that stuff. So if you're in Seattle for the All-Star game, check it out. It'll be all over our Twitter and stuff this week.
That will be a ton of fun for everyone who gets to catch that event.
Sure.